Hi, welcome to this Centremaps video. We're here today with Jem from GeoSmart. Thanks, Jem. What's the industry kind of setting at the moment that's really got this extra interest in looking beyond just a single site?
We have found that our business GeoSmart information is really built out of working with flood risk assessments for many years, looking at particular sites for property developers, for architects, for surveyors and conveyance. But more recently we're working with asset managers who hold, for example, 200 sites of commercial property and want to get an understanding of what is the extent of flood risk that exists across that range of properties within a portfolio. So we really now are seeing whether it's asset management in the commercial space or in the residential space or housing associations, looking at a wider view of where does flood exist today and in the future under climate change conditions.
And we offer a couple of the data sets, but GeoSmart have built up I think quite a range of data sets that really help to split the granularity of where it is that the different types of flood risk are having an impact. So I guess that's actually been quite a good feeder into this kind of analytic process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have built a data set for the entire UK that has sort of over 400 data points around flooding, flood risk per property. So we can be extremely granular in our view of a particular property or particular site and the flood risk today. We've also integrated climate change data, and that looks at different RCPs under different climate change scenarios and the severity of those. So we can give different views on the data. We have a whole range of analytics in our FloodSmart Analytics platform, but we can also produce screening and portfolio reports that look specifically at a set number of properties across the United Kingdom.
Right. And so how does somebody kind of engage with the process of saying, okay, I've got these 200 locations across the country, what information are they providing to you, and what's the, I guess there might be a couple of stages that they then go through and review how properties are affected. How does that process begin, and what are the kind of practical steps that they go through?
Sure. So depending on the number of properties or the number of sites, they'll want to get an understanding initially of what is the level of risk that exists within my portfolio, and that can be if it's a smaller number, a certain percentage, but generally once the numbers start increasing in your portfolio, you will start to see inevitably a percentage of high risk sites or properties that need further consideration. So what we recommend in GeoSmart's case is that we look first of all at what is the level and the percentage of risk that exists today, and in the future what will that percentage increase to, and then from there we can say let's have a closer look at those percentage of properties and sites that are at risk, and from there we can go into more detailed flood risk assessment at that stage. But to begin with, we just recommend let's have a broad view which we can then narrow down to a granular level.
Yeah, we went through some examples earlier, and actually when you get to the data, there's an incredible amount of data there, but that dashboard, that high level, be able to then say actually, okay, it's a proportion that's affected without necessarily going straight to this huge spreadsheet of data. I think that's really useful for different levels within an organisation, trying to understand what's going on, what the considerations are.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can be very specific in the types of information we're looking at. So whether we want to look at the four main sources of flooding, from river, coastal, surface water and groundwater, whether we want to look at current flood risk today, or whether we want to look out to the 2030s, 50s and 80s in terms of how will that risk change under climate change scenarios. So we can break the data up in a lot of ways, but from our point of view we can offer a report and a screening service that gives a very high level understanding for perhaps people who are less technical as well. Yeah. Because a lot of the hydrology and the hydrogeology can be quite complex to get to grips with, so we offer a view that sort of provides a bit of context for people who are in leadership positions or dealing with a portfolio of properties who need a broader understanding.
Yeah. And I guess the drivers lately, it's not just an organisation doesn't just need to have a concern because of damage to their property, but also I guess all of the funding and the backing and the insurance behind any given property. There's increasing understanding from the lenders or the insurers about this information, so they need to know detail, and that's really going to help an organisation to understand their risk from the cost of insurance as well as from just physical damage or risk to, say, residents if it's maybe a housing association.
Exactly right. So what we're seeing with our clients is that those who are considering longer term, what does their investment mean in terms of exposure to risk? That's a key piece that I think is coming more and more into focus when we look at the news and we look at what businesses are in the mortgage space, in the insurance space, are talking about, which is your property and your investment today is one thing, but what does that look like in terms of the climate change scenarios that will impact the UK? We know that flood is the leading peril which will impact the UK due to climate change, and then it's really about understanding what are the levels of risk that will be exposed to under the different climate change RCP scenarios. So we're seeing more and more investors, lenders looking at how does that risk play out over that time frame, and particularly for longer term investors who are looking at sustainability. So this plays into the ESG piece, and how do you make your business or your investments more sustainable? You're looking at regulations that are developing. How can you really address that, and how does risk play into that piece as well?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jem. It's been really interesting. I know it's quite a high level look at the challenge. If anyone's got assets they're looking at, or even individual properties, then it's worth getting in touch. We can explain the process and talk you through it a bit more. And we'll also be looking in future videos at other GeoSmart offerings, so whether it's FloodSmart, the SudSmart, or the EnviroSmart products. I've got lots of content around those as well. So thanks again, Jem, and do get in touch.
Thanks very much, Andy.